everybody, it's Chamber Matt, and I am here today with Darcy Huffman, conducting our 2020 candidate interviews for the general election. And Darcy is running for position number 2 in the 35th Legislative District, which, when we chatted a little earlier, is what was it, 1,600 what?
How 1,649 square miles.
Yep. 1,649 square miles. That's huge. It encompasses all of Mason County, a portion of a little bit of Thurston County, and then here in South Kitsap County, it includes portions out in the Glenwood area and up into Seabeck. And so I wanted to invite Darcy in to let us know how she stands on a few of the issues. And so what we've basically done is we've come up with 6 questions. I'm going to go ahead and put Darcy on the hot seat, ask her these questions, and then we will upload the interviews. Obviously, if you're watching this now, you're probably watching it on YouTube. But we've also got the other candidates that are running. Darcy's running against Drew McEwen, who is the current Republican incumbent. And so, Darcy, thank you for joining us today. And I just wanted to start out, and maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what in the world possessed you to want to run for public office, and and why you think you're the best person to serve the citizens of the 35th Legislative District.
Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. I ask myself that same question every now and then, what possessed me to do this? But every time I talk to a voter, and we've made over 15,000 calls to voters, and I hear a story about a lady who has to choose between paying her taxes and getting health care, I am reminded of why I am running. I grew up in Washington State. I have lived in many different states, but I've always come back here to Washington, and I've lived here now for about 25 years. I have 25 years of banking experience, and about 10 years of working as really a business manager for a really large Lutheran church here in Olympia. And whether it was helping people to balance their checkbook, or helping a small business get started, or listening to a story about healthcare or not being able to afford groceries, I have just always had a heart for people who have been kind of left behind by the economy, I think. And so I have come to a point in my life where I was able to quit my job and to say, okay, I am going to run for state representative, because this is the place where I can help the most people. So, and that's why I'm in it. I have no hidden agenda. This work will be 24/7, 365. I will be working for the people of the 35th to make their lives better, because that's what government is for, is to really help make your life better.
All right, outstanding. So, just kind of starting off, in your campaigning and in your life here in Washington State in the area, what do you think are the most challenges, the greatest challenges, the most important challenges facing the state? And I got another question coming up here, on COVID, but how do you, what do you think are the biggest challenges, and how do you propose to address them?
Well, I think even long before COVID, healthcare and healthcare costs have been just outrageous for people in our district, and just people across the nation. I mean, our healthcare system, yes, we have fabulous healthcare if you can get it and if you can afford it. But when people have to choose between healthcare and putting food on the table, or when married couples have to alternate who gets to fill their medication this month, there is just something wrong with that system, and we need to do something about it. our healthcare system is so expensive that that instead of worrying about getting well, people are worried about how they're going to pay for it. I just had a friend of mine whose little boy has now been diagnosed with childhood diabetes, and he is up at Children's Hospital concerned about how am I going to pay for all of this, right? And instead of being and concerned about his child, but there should never be a concern about, oh my God, how am I going to pay for all of this? This is a lifelong issue. And now this young man has a pre-existing condition, and so how are we going to protect him, be able to so that he can have lifelong insurance? I mean, the cost of insulin is ridiculous for these people. And we just need to do something about it. And yes, it is a national issue too, but if the nation is not going to take care of it, then we need to take care of the people here in our state and do as much as possible to make sure that they have really good health care. Another issue that has been really brought to the forefront is broadband. Our broadband in not only in rural areas, but also, in towns and cities as well, is just awful, and it's unaffordable by so many people. And now we have kids who have to do their homework basically in their car because we can't get proper internet out to their houses. I mean, I have a really good friend who has to give up one of her most valued volunteer work because Comcast and Quest are fighting over the lines basically to her house, and so they both cut off her internet access. I mean, this is not appropriate. This is a real issue that not only affects individual people, but it also affects businesses. Because how can you bring businesses into a county or into a district that doesn't have broadband services that will enable them to do business? It also affects people that can't do work from home, right? So, I mean, you can't be a waitress and do it from your home. You can't. So broadband is such an important part of our economy now that it needs to be a public utility, and everybody needs to have access to quality broadband for students and for business and just for their telehealth and just for their way of life. It's crazy that we don't have that.
It's here comes the big question. Let's talk about taxes. We've got B&O taxes, we've got gas taxes, we have excise taxes, we have sales tax. Federally right now, we have an income tax and capital gain taxes and payroll taxes and emission taxes and road mileage taxes. There's just about a tax on everything. Are there solutions other than taxes available to address our budget shortfalls? And what is your preferred method of dealing with I can't even say with a potential budget shortfall, but with our current budget situation?
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of a yes and person to that question. So yes, there are other ways of funding our budget, but and there are ways that we can fix our broken tax system. I 100% agree with you that we just have the most unfair tax system probably in America. And we need to do something about it. Ann Richards, one of my very favorite people, she was the governor of Texas. She said, life is not fair, but government should be. And I 100% agree with that. Before COVID-19, I was reading an article that said our tax system, regressive, they call it a regressive tax system. I just think it's unfair. Actually costs us about 5% in growth every year. And we just can't afford to continue to do that. So there is a working group now in the legislature that is led by Noelle Frame, and she is a tax geek. She just lives up to it. That's exactly what she is, and they've been working on ways of getting of making a more fair tax system. we're going to have to pay taxes. There's no doubt about that. That's cost of living in a free society is taxes, but we need to make them more fair, and not only for businesses, but we also need to make them more fair for consumers. I mean, the lower end people who make the least amount pay the most. They pay 18% of their income on taxes and fees, while millionaires and billionaires, of which we have over 168,000 of in our state, pay 3%. So somehow that does not seem very fair to me. And we need to, if I had my way, I think we just scrap the whole thing and start all over again and try to make it more fair. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that. And unfortunately, right now with COVID-19, we are going to have to maybe make some short-term fixes. So do something that only lasts for a year, some type of an income, some type of revenue. We have forced our businesses to make tough choices and to become different in COVID-19, to learn how to do their businesses differently in COVID-19. I think we need to ask our legislature to do the same thing. So we need to be inventive. We need to think outside the box. We need to take the burden off of businesses and people who can least afford it, and ask the people who can afford it to pay maybe a little more.
All right, thank you. So now the next question is dealing with workforce. One issue facing local businesses is finding quality trained workforce. Education funding is often left to levies and not adequately funded at the state level. What ideas do you have to update our school funding, and how would you implement those changes?
Well, first of all, I think that that community colleges and trade schools are probably the answer to a lot of our education issues. I think we also have to make sure that we make kids feel good about themselves, even if they're not going to go to college. College is not for everybody. I've raised 4 boys. 3 boys and a girl, and each one of them have been different. Some of them, I had 2 that went into the military. I have a son that is up in Western now, and I have a granddaughter who we raised, who's taking a year off because she doesn't quite know what she wants to do. But we can't make kids feel bad about themselves because they're not going to go to college. It's just not for everybody. But everyone can learn a trade. Everyone can contribute to society, and we need to build that up. So let's start talking about funding our community colleges and our trade schools. Let's talk about working with unions in order to get young people into unions where they can learn a trade. I mean, there's nothing like standing next to a welder in order to learning how to weld, and so I think that we need to start encouraging people to do a trade. I mean, how long does it take you to get a plumber to your house, or how long does it take you to get an electrician to your house? So these are trades that need to be filled, that need to be backfilled, and they make good money and quality family wages. And I think that we just need to encourage our students from a very young age to think about going into these trades.
So how do you think funding would look like for that? Would it be on a state level, a property tax level?
Well, so I know that this is probably not going to be super popular with the businesses, but I think that businesses should also help train the workers of tomorrow. So if you get some interest in, if you get a student who is interested in being an electrician, so being able to help that young person get the training that they need to have could come from actual businesses who are looking for electricians. I think that and I think that you know, the same can go for many other for many other trades. Um, yeah, is it a tax? Yeah, but is there a benefit to that particular business? Yes. And so I think that if you can talk about it that way and encourage people to say, look, this is going to help you down the road because you are going to get these great electricians, you are going to get these great welders, you are going to get these great nurses. I mean, one of the real issues that we have in healthcare is that we don't have enough healthcare providers or healthcare workers because it costs so much money to go to medical school. And they come out with this huge amount of debt, and they don't want to go to rural hospitals or rural communities because they can't make as much money as if they go to the cities. So we need to figure out a way of investing in our kids and in our young people to bring them back into communities like mine. And we do that by offering to help pay for their student debt. We do that in the church. We do that in other organizations, and so I think it could be a really good thing.
All right. So then another question kind of along the education side is, what responsibility does the state and federal government have to provide quality education for students from kindergarten through college? And then, should the government, whether it's state or federal or even the county, should the government, beyond the local school boards, play a role in the development and implementation of school curriculum?
Here in Washington State, there is a reason that we have all of these different school districts. My district touches 18 different school districts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. And each one of those school districts need to have some guidance on what is being taught. So there needs to be, everybody needs to have math and science and those types of things. So there needs to be some guidance. But the reason that there are so many different school districts is because schools should be, for the most part, localized, right? So the people who live in those districts ought to have a say about the curriculum, ought to have a say about, after school activities, those types of things. But if you're going to level the playing field, then you need to have some kind of state curriculum, some type of a state umbrella of what is being taught in the school. Because what if somebody who goes to Olympia School District wants to move to Spokane or moves to Spokane, and they've been taught a totally different curriculum? So that is not fair to that student, right? So there needs to be some cohesiveness, but there also needs to be an approach. So yes, we want you to teach math, and by the time they're out of high school, they need to be ready for college. They need to be ready for college math. Now, how you teach that is up to that particular school district, and I think that is fair.
Okay. So I have a bonus question. I fibbed to you, yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about COVID-19, and the challenges that are there. Beyond the direct financial support, like the grants, which have been provided for through the CARES program and through the Washington State Department of Commerce. So I'm not just talking about throwing money at the problem,
Mm-hmm.
but are there other things that the government can do to provide local businesses, help and assistance as we recover from COVID-19?
I think one of the biggest things that government can do, or to help do, I mean, it can't do it on its own, but I think that they need to make people feel safe, right? So part of the reason that people are not shopping or not going to restaurants, are not going, to movie theaters, those kinds of things, is because they don't feel safe, and that could be something that the government could help with, right? So making sure that people have the right information that they can trust. Right now, there is such a divide between what the government says and what people feel like they can trust, and that's and part of that is what divides us. Well, you can't trust what the government says, and the other and people who believe in science say no, you really can trust what the government says. This is, this is really true. So if we could get past that trust stage, past that part where if the government says it, or if the CDC says it, or then we can trust that, then I think that would really help businesses get back on their feet, because until people feel safe, many of them are going to stay home. And you hear this discussion in schools. Well, I want my kids to get back to school, and it's not really affecting, it's not really affecting kids or younger people. COVID-19 isn't, but it is. And then they don't think about, well, yeah, but your kid goes to school and they see their teacher, and then their teacher goes home to maybe their grandparents, or the kids go home to their grandparents. I mean, there's just like this, and people need to see the big picture, right? And just need to see beyond what they may be thinking about. So I really wish that people were more, I mean, I don't think that you need to trust the government, whatever comes out of the government's mouth, or, out of their microphone 100%, right? Because they make mistakes. It's true. That's the nature of the game. But I wish there was just a little more trust in science and a little more trust in government. And I think it would calm people down to where they felt more, to when it's good and when they're safe, to be safe and to get back to their life as normal once they really truly are safe.
Well, that was a really good answer. That is I hadn't even thought about that aspect of it, and you're right. That's and that should be a relatively inexpensive fix.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't, talking about the the truth, saying, telling the truth, is cheap. I mean, it just is. It doesn't, and you're right, it doesn't cost anything.
Yeah.
You just have to people just need to feel safe. And boy, and I'll, no, I'll blame the media. I'll, there's plenty of blame to go around, but until we can all speak with at least one voice, and believe what is said, I think it's going to be really difficult for us to get back to life as normal.
All right, so I want to wrap things up here, Darcy, and I want to thank you for joining me today, and I want to give you the last word, or probably not, because I'll probably still want to get the last word in, but the last word as far as your race for the office is concerned, and if you want to kind of summarize things for us real brief, and then I will get the last word in, and so.
All right, as long as it's a truthful word, Matt, I'm good with that.
You bet.
I'm good with that. So, well, thank you again for your time, and thanks for those of you who are taking time out of your day to watch this. So, here's why I feel like you should vote for me. If you feel like government is not working for you, it probably isn't. And part of that reason for here in the 35th is because you have no voice at the table where decisions are being made. The Democrats are going to be in the majority. There isn't any doubt about that. And you can have your voice at the table where decisions are being made, or you can have your voices being outside across the hall where decisions aren't being made. And that's just how government works. I grew up in rural communities. My heart is in rural communities. Every time I drive through the 35th, I just think about how beautiful it is, how beautiful the people are. I mean, they just have taken me in, and you know, I just feel like I have lived here my whole life, and 24 years of it is a long time, but I just really love it, and I want what is best for all of the people of the 35th, not just a few, but for everybody of the 35th. I want better health care. I want broadband. I want more housing. I want all of these things that will increase the quality of everybody's life. And one of the ways of doing that and making sure that we are not left out of this economy, this recovery that we are going to be going into, is by having a voice at the table who will talk to the legislature about rural Washington. Now, we have a few, but we don't have enough. And so we really need to get more people in there who can say, yeah, that's really great for King County, but that's not going to work for Mason County or for the parts of Kitsap and Thurston County that I represent. And Richards, once again, you know, she said, if you're not at the table, you're just on the menu. And I think we've been on the menu for too long, and it's now time for us to be at the table. And finally, I will just say, this will be my job 24/7, 365. This is my job. I quit my other job to run for office, and I will not have another job while I am in office. And that means that I am available to you, and that I have no other agenda but that to serve the people of the 35th. And I would really appreciate your vote. And again, thank you.
All right, so I appreciate your time and the time that you spent with us today. And my final word is to remind everybody, to all the viewers that have watched this, that there are other candidate videos being created for this. We've got the county commissioner races for Kitsap County for the 26th legislative district. If you're interested in that area, if you just want to hear what the other candidates have to say, they're all posted on YouTube. So actually, they're going to be posted as they're completed. So, you know, as I get both candidates for a particular position, I go ahead and post those interviews. I recommend it, and I encourage everybody to go out, check out our YouTube page. I think, Darcy, you probably have a website.
I do. Thank you for asking. DarcyHuffman.com. And if I can just say one more thing, I want to thank everybody out there for being a voter, because that is the most important thing that you can do, is vote.
So you thought you were going to get the last word in, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I will. I'll let it end with that. And again, Darcy, thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks, everyone.